Hello, welcome to the training webinar for this week. And this week we are continuing to talk about how to use SQL commands in Process Director. And last week we talked mainly about the select command, how to get data out of your database and into Process Director. Today, we are going to talk about getting information from Process Director into your database in two cases in any event, and then how to just get rid of information in your database with the delete command. So with that in mind for our agenda, let's go ahead and get started. So this is where we ended up last week. We ended up here with this data list, or from a drop-down, taking data from our database, selecting it from either a data list control or from a drop-down, and filling out all of these fields here on the bottom of the form. Okay, great. We have the fields that we need. I want to be sure that I saved the names properly here. I think I did. But before we begin, it's going to be really important that these are all saved with the right name. I did not save that with the right name. I called it country instead of airport country. So I am going to have to make a couple of alterations to this. And I also did region, city, and elevation. So I will just have to remind myself to change some of this whenever I copy and paste it here in just a few minutes. I really should have ensured that when I named these fields, I named them the same thing that are on my sample form, but in any event, we'll live with it as is. So I can get information and place it in these fields. That's great, but what if I need to change some of that information, or of course, just delete that information entirely? Well, from a form perspective, from a UI perspective, I'm certainly going to need a button to do all of those things. So let's go ahead and go to Actions and let's select Button. And we will just throw a button control on here. We're going to call it button delete. And we're going to have, no, that's not what we are going to call it. We're going to call it button update. And we are going to put the text update here for our button control. There have, by the way, been some new additions to the button properties in Process Director, and it's important that you know what some of these are. Obviously, we have our color and our back color, but we've also added the ability to throw in a corner radius so that you can get nice little corner radiuses on your buttons, so that instead of square buttons, you can make them rounded and round the corners to whatever degree that you would like. We've also added the box shadow. The show box shadow turns a button into the older style 3D buttons. In terms of modernity, we can turn that off and just have nice flat buttons on the page to match the modern design motifs that are so popular nowadays, with flat design rather than skeuomorphic design. But we do want to change our color and our back color here. So for our color, we are just going to go with, and here's the thing with the colors. Now, normally I use hexadecimal colors. So FF is white. You can just use named HTML colors here. So you can just say that you want the color to be white. For our custom colors for BP Logics, which I always use. I will fall back on the 082 F4D navy blue color for our buttons. And if I want to go ahead and see these changes on the buttons in the design view, that's not going to happen until I save the form or close the form and save it and reopen it. But I can just save the form, and when I save, the UI will be updated, the form will reload, and it will show me my button here with its nice dark blue color and the white text for the button using the named HTML color. Right there in the color property. And turning off the box shadow, I have now made this a flat button. And so it has the more modern look and feel. Oh, and by the way, you can see my 5 pixel corners here, which are slightly rounded. If that's not enough rounding, let's just for general purposes, let's just double that. Let's set this to 10 pixels. And save it and see what a 10 pixel border looks like. It might be a little too round. But no, you know what? I think it's round, but there's still a little flatness along the edges. So I'm kind of happy with this button. So we'll continue this design motif as we throw in the other buttons. Okay, well, I've got a button. What do I do with it? So far, we've used business values to go grab our data from the database. And that's all well and good. That's the best way to get data out of the database. That is where we will use our select command most often on all of the areas where we need to select data from the database and return it. We will use a select command to do so. But now we're going to be using commands that actually alter the data that exists in the table that we're looking at. And we can't really use business values to do that. Well, that's not entirely true. We can, in fact, use business values to change data in the table. There are certain times where, in fact, you might want to use a business value to do that in cases where you are very sure that you actually want to change the data no matter who calls the business value. The trouble with the business value is that once you create it, it's universally accessible by every implementer, which means conceivably that business value could be used in every single form in your installation. And that's great for grabbing data, not so great for altering data, because we're going to assume that if you have data in a table, it's kind of important. That's why you're saving it. And you do not want to go in and just change that data willy-nilly. And the problem with the business value is that anyone who accesses it is going to run whatever SQL you put in here. We do not vet, other than for, the syntax checking that the new Monaco editor does. We don't vet the SQL you're going to send to your database. That's on you. So we are going to execute without question the SQL that you place into the big box here. And if that SQL says update or insert or delete, we're gonna do it. So that means we have to be super careful about how we use business values, because A, the business value is now accessible basically to any implementer on your system who wants to call a business value to do something. So it can be used anywhere. And two, we are not going to check to ensure that what you place in this box is what is supposed to happen, because we don't know what is supposed to happen. That's your job, and we expect you to put the right stuff in here. Now, even though in 99.9% of the cases, you would never use a business value to alter the data in your database, that is not 100% true. SQL Server has, and Oracle does too, it has an ability. They're called stored procedures. Now, stored procedures are much more complex SQL things, so we're not really going to discuss stored procedures today, except to say that there may be a time when you both need to return data from a database and you need to alter data in the database as well as part of this procedure. Stored procedures accept variables so that you can declare variables and set the value of those variables, both to what you're going to send to SQL Server and also what SQL Server will return to you. So there may be some rare circumstances where if you are an advanced user of SQL, you might create a stored procedure as a business value. And stored procedures can run many SQL commands in the order in which you desire. And so you might have some SQL commands that alter data, some that delete data, and then some that return data to you that you would use to place into a form or whatever. So it's not an absolute ban on using update commands or delete commands in a business value. You can do it. It's just that in 99.9% of the cases, it's an extraordinarily unwise thing to do. So that raises the question of, all right, how do I do this in Process Director? Well, the way that you do it is rather than run it from a business value, you are going to go to the Custom Task Event Mapping tab, and you are going to select the SQL command custom task. So if we go to Database Connectors, there is a SQL command custom task, and we can add that custom task to our form. And in this case, since we already have a button update, that we will click to update some data in our database, that is the event that we are going to use for the SQL command. And the configuration is pretty simple. I need really two things. I need a data source and I need the SQL command that I am going to give to that data source. So we already do have our data source. It's the same one that we used last week, and I don't remember its name. So it is SQL Webinar Airports. Thank you. So we will go down to SQL Webinar Airports, which is this one right here. And we're going to go ahead and connect just to test to be sure that we can connect to that database. I had no doubt that we could, but clicking that button is always useful. And now we can begin writing the SQL command that we want to write to change our data. So that's the Process Director side of how we're going to do it. And the reason why we're doing it this way through the SQL command custom task is because it gives you full control over where and when the SQL that we're going to put in here to change the data in our database, since this will be an update command, I now have full control over it as the designer. If I want to change airport data, the only place I can change it now is on this form when I invoke this specific custom task to run the SQL command. So I never have to worry about it being inadvertently selected by a user who would otherwise, if it was in a business value, otherwise have access to that change command that I didn't have control over. This gives me full control over where and when the data can be changed in the database. So most of the data connection custom tasks have been superseded in Process Director. And by the way, we're going to go ahead and hit OK. This field is required. Okay. I'm just going to put the word update in there because something has to be in there. And I'm going to hit OK. We're going to come back to reconfigure this. But I'm going to actually add an update, an insert, and a delete command, each of which is going to invoke their own SQL command custom task. Now, as I was about to say, most of the custom tasks, and let me go and save my form here before we do this, and let me show my system folders so that we can look at the custom tasks and look at the database connectors custom tasks. Most of these custom tasks have been largely deprecated. The advanced fill down from DB or advanced fill drop down object, the fill fields from DB, fill drop down from DB, these have largely been deprecated. We don't need them anymore because we have the set form data tab or the fill drop downs tab in our form, and we can fill whatever data we need to fill on our form via a business value. Now, prior to the existence of business values back in Process Director 4.5, these were used quite a lot. And the reason that we replaced them largely with business values so that most of these, certainly the fill dropdown and fill fields custom tasks, are largely deprecated, and we don't have to use them again, is because every time I wanted to pull data from a database, I'd have to configure like the fill dropdown from DB. I might have the same dropdown on many forms, and on every form, I would have to go in and create the custom task and configure it and use the same SQL statement. And so I was replicating that configuration over and over and over. Business values have liberated us from this repetitive configuration in most cases. Where we're keeping it is the SQL command custom task. Because we are changing data, we would prefer, for safety reasons, if nothing else, to force you, if you're going to run the same update command many different times, which I don't think is something you are liable to do. I think largely the times when you want to change data are relatively rare. And so it's not that big of a burden to configure it in a specific place. There may be a couple of places where you want to do this, but unlike the fill fields or fill dropdowns, which generally had to be replicated on many forms over and over again, which gets tedious and irksome, that's not true for update, insert, and delete operations. So I think it's both not a huge burden to have to configure the SQL command custom task if I want to run those commands, because I'm not going to run them very often. And for security reasons, I think we want you to intentionally configure that SQL command every place where you're going to use it, largely because we don't think you're going to use it in a lot of places. So even if you do have to replicate it maybe here and there, it's not that big of a burden, and the burden is outweighed by the security that it adds to the system by forcing you to manually configure data or manually configure commands that will change the data in your database. So with all that in mind, we'll go ahead and toggle my system folders back off again, and we'll go back to my SQL webinar form, and we will prepare to configure this SQL command. As I said, this is an update command. That's what we called the button. So I guess we're going to have to update our SQL. So let's talk about how that happens. When we are going to update, this is the command that we are almost invariably going to give. The command is update. Now, last week we talked about SQL, and as you can see, there were several different versions of how a select command works in SQL, depending on what you're doing. It's much simpler when we start talking about update, insert, and delete because they tend to have a very fixed, similar syntax that you'll use over and over again. And for the update, this is it. We're going to update a table, whatever the name of that table is, and then we have the ability to set the fields that we want to update. Now, we can update as many or as few fields as we want in our data. Now, in our example, and this is the actual example that we're going to use to update our data. In our example, we're going to update every one of the 7 fields because we don't know when this form runs. We don't generally know what the user might need to change in our forms. Sometimes we do. And if we do, then we can just pick and choose the fields we want to allow the user to update. But if we don't know what fields, then we just have to add them all into our command. So we're going to update our table, and we are going to set field 1 equals value 1, comma, field 2 equals value 2, and so forth and so on. So that is our what we call our set phrase. So here with the one that I have highlighted, this is the set phrase for this update command that specifies all of the fields that we are going to update. Except that we're not going to update all of them. We're only going to update 6 of the 7. And the reason is this third clause here, where record ID equals 1 or 10 or 493 or whatever your record ID happens to be in your table. As we discussed last week, the record ID is the one field that uniquely identifies each row in the table, each row being a single record in our example that we're using today of airports and the data about a specific airport. This is called the primary key, and this is what we are usually going to use when we do an update. In fact, almost invariably, we're going to use it. And it's a very, very important phrase because if the phrase does not exist, this is a valid update command too. And if I run this command, it is going to set the value of every single record in the table of field 1 is going to be set to value 1 and field 2 is going to be set to value 2. Not having that where clause is extremely dangerous because it will overwrite every record with the value that I have placed here. That's why it is so important that we keep that record ID there because it uniquely identifies one record. And that means that this is the only record that the update command has the power to change in our database. So this format here, update, set, where, that is the format that you will almost invariably use. I think the number of cases where you have a table with a single record, so the record ID doesn't matter, is pretty small in the vast number of use cases. So you are going to want to ensure that you uniquely identify. Remember, in Process Director, we are not going to check to see if this is the command you want to run. We are going to assume that it is the command that you want to run, and we are going to pass it to the database as is. And then SQL Server is going to do whatever you're telling it to do right here, which in this case would be to update every single record in the table to change field 1 and field 2 to the two values that you specified here. Which brings me to another important consideration. Whenever we're running these SQL commands, sometimes you'll try to run a command and what you'll get is an error message back, or you'll look in the logs and you'll get a SQL error that you see in the logs. That is generally not a process director issue. That's generally an issue with your SQL command. You have passed a bad SQL command to the system, to the database, and the error messages that you see are error messages from SQL Server. Process Director will collect them and will present them to you. So you may see a red error banner like we saw a minute ago at the very top of the form that says, hey, we tried to run the SQL command and it didn't work. I think last week when I was trying to run a business value and I put in some wrong text, we got that error up at the top of the screen in red. I had to change the values. I think it was because I was using ID as the field value, which is a stupid thing on my part because ID is kind of a reserved word in SQL. So those errors are coming from the database. That's not process director, is doing something wrong. That's generally, I've told the database to do something that the database says is wrong, and it's returning an error saying I can't do it, usually because there's a syntax error in what you have here. For example, let's say I forgot that comma between field 1 and field 2. That's going to throw an error. It's even making Visual Studio Code very unhappy, and it is trying to force me to put that comma back in because Visual Studio Code knows that that is a bad thing. However, whenever you are working in Process Director, and I'm just going to go ahead and let it force me to put that comma back in. Whenever you're working in Process Director and you run over here and you say, okay, well, I want to configure this SQL statement, that's not going to happen in here. Now, because we've added the Monaco editor to the business values definition, the Monaco editor is actually the same editor that Visual Studio Code uses. So it's basically the same thing. And so it's going to want to help you and try to put that comment in for you, or it's just whenever you try to test the command, it's just going to tell you you've got bad syntax. You gotta fix that. So when you try to save the business value or whatever, it's going to check the syntax and say, nope, sorry, you've got, in this case, a missing comma between two of your fields. The SQL command configuration is not going to do that. It is not going to help you. So it is going to pull whatever data you tell it to pull, or it is going to return the error message because you've given it a bad SQL statement. The other thing you have to be careful with the SQL command custom task is that little button right there that says execute SQL command. Remember, whatever you put in here, we're going to send to SQL Server and wash our hands of it as far as Process Director goes. Whatever you put in here is a SQL Server problem. That also means that because we're going to pass this SQL as is to SQL Server, when you click this button, if you say, delete star from table airports, it's going to well, you don't even have to put delete star anymore. They've changed the syntax. Delete from table airports. It will delete everything from table airports. And I do mean everything. That means all of your data is gone. And it will come back and tell you, hey, your command ran successfully. Okay, but now I've deleted everything in the table. So you got to be super careful with hitting that execute SQL command button. Now, In the commands that we're going to use today, we're going to be using a lot of system variables to provide values, one of which is going to be the where clause that tells it what record to update. So that's going to be empty, which, okay, fine, but now your SQL command isn't going to work. For example, if I go here, this is the update command that we are largely going to send, which we'll explain here in a second. First of all, I know that these fields are wrong. They have to be changed. But even if I change the field, this command is not going to be able to run. So I can go ahead and paste it here. And it is airport name, airport code. And I think airport city is just city. Airport region is just region. Similarly, country, and I guess I could have just deleted airport, huh? And elevation, where ID equals airport ID. Again, all system variables. And if I execute this SQL command, I do get an error. Now, this error is not coming from process director. Remember, it is coming from SQL Server. So most of the time, whenever you get errors off of running either a business value or a SQL command custom task like this one, when you see an error, it's generally because the SQL statement is bad. In this particular case, the SQL statement is not bad. The SQL statement is good, except, of course, none of these system variables have any values. In fact, if you look up here, this right there, that is what is being passed to SQL Server. So basically, we are saying set airports. Now, this is bad. Airport name equals single quote, single quote. Normally, that would empty the field. It would just set it to a blank value, which would be a bad thing. However, if we look here at the end where ID equals, and the ID equals nothing. Okay, whew, we're safe. Yes, it's a bad SQL statement, but it's only a bad SQL statement right here where the ID is missing. And because the ID is missing, it has no idea what table or what row we are trying to delete because we haven't passed it. So therefore, it's not going to work. And there's a little note here that tells you that, that says the query string will not evaluate correctly until the custom task actually runs. So the execute SQL command button, while useful in theory, in practice is probably not going to be very useful for you because most of the time you're going to be doing something like where ID equals airport ID, which is just not going to evaluate to anything, and your SQL call is going to fail just as it did here. So we're going to have to ignore this error, even though we know it's only an error because none of these system variables have any value. We are not in a context that enables process director to know what the region field is or the country field or what the airport ID is. But our SQL statement is good. Now, once again, I will remind you that anytime I'm going to use, well, this is a lot easier to see. So let's go back here. So anytime that I am going to pass a data to SQL, I'm going to want to sanitize that data by using the appropriate encoding character to make this a SQL safe value when it gets passed to your SQL server. This is required for any data that's coming in. So anytime that you're going to want to use a system variable anywhere in a SQL statement, you do need to throw that $sign in. Depending on how you have your system set up, and I believe I had mentioned this yesterday, Do I still have that configuration screen open? I do. If I were to take out, let's just take this one out. So we'll take out that dollar sign, and I hit OK here. Let me reopen it. It's going to give me this warning. For security purposes, always use the appropriate encoding for any system variables included in a SQL query. Now, the reason that it's giving me this warning is because I have my system set up to allow me, even though it cautions me strongly not to do so, to allow me to pass system variables, like in this case, the form field system variable for airport name. It will allow me to do that, although it's going to tell me it's not happy about it. There is a custom variable that you can set on your system, and as far as I know, nearly all of the customers that I can think of some that don't, but most of the ones I can think of have a custom variable set that actually will not allow you to save a business value or a SQL command custom task. It will not allow you to save it without, and it will not run if you do not include that encoding character on any of these system variables that you place in here. So in my case, it will let me do it, but it'll whine about it. In your case, it may not let you do it at all. It may require that you put that encoding character in there. But we're going to go ahead and hit OK here. And I think this is all going to be good. I think I changed all of the form controls names. So I think we're good to go. If we're not, it will tell me and I'll have to go back in and fix it. But I think we're good there. But we do need to talk about one brief little thing here. I didn't want to run it. I just wanted to update it. Currently, I'm using a form field system variable. Now, I'm actually using the shortcut for a form field system variable, which is just : airport name. I've noticed that some customers still use the form, and that's fine. You can do that. It's not a it's not a fail. It works perfectly fine. It's just, from my view, typing in 4 characters I don't need because we've kind of shortcutted form field system variables. Now you would need that for any other system variable to identify the system variable type, but for forms you don't. However, if you are using the full syntax for a form field system variable, always remember that the very first character that you type inside the system variable is always going to be the encoding character. So if you're using the full system variable name, it would be $form : field name. And if you're not using the formal syntax, that's fine. That'll work too. The important thing to remember is that the encoding character is always the first character of whatever system variable that you're using. Now, there are a lot of different encoding characters that we have in Process Director. This just happens to be the SQL encoding character and is the one that is relevant to what we're talking about today. Doesn't matter if you can use any of those encoding characters on system variables as it becomes necessary for you to do so. Just remember, the encoding character is always the very first character after you place the left square bracket on the page. The next thing you're going to want to type is the encoding character, as I've done here. So with this SQL statement that we've created, this one here, this is the one we're basically using, although I should remove that so that we're pointing at the actual SQL statement that we're using. And think city. So I think city, oh, it's region. So there we go. City, region, country, elevation. Those are all, they don't have the word airport like airport code and airport name does. So with this SQL statement, we're going to set the airport name to the value of the airport name field, airport code to the value of the airport code field, so on and so forth, where the ID equals whatever the ID is showing up in the airport ID field. So we should have a running update command that works exactly the way that we expect it to, assuming that I have written the SQL properly and that I've gotten my field names right, since I did not exercise consistency when I named the fields. So what I should be able to do is now run my form and do an update. All right, so we've run the form. That's good so far. Let's make our form a little bit taller so that we can, I think we can see the whole thing. There we go. Now we're fine. I've got an update button. Now, the update is not going to do anything now. If I click it, well, it's actually going to do something. It is going to try to send my SQL. But I actually don't have any data here. So I'm actually running into the same problem. Now, from that we had before where I have no values in any of these system variables, and importantly, I don't have a value in airport ID, so it does not know what update command to change. This is exactly what happened when I hit the test SQL command button previously. That's happening again. Now, for your end user, they are going to see a less helpful message in the UI, which is this one at the top. It says SQL command could not execute query. Please contact your administrator to correct the database connection. I hate this error message because while that may be what needs to be done, what probably needs to be done is the SQL statement itself needs to be fixed. So this is a generic canned and admittedly, in this particular case, incorrect error message that is going to be shown to your end user, which is not going to be very helpful for them. And honestly, it's not very helpful for you, but we don't want to show them a whole bunch of SQL stuff. Now, it might be more helpful if we did, that they could copy and paste to you and complain to you that, hey, the system isn't working the way it's supposed to work, which I get that. But if your user tells you, hey, I tried to I clicked the update button and I got an error that said, fix the database connection. Well, what you're probably going to want to do is go to the logs and see if that is in fact what the issue is. So when we go to settings and troubleshooting and we go to our logs, we have a couple of places we can look, but most likely we're going to look at the script log, because the script log is going to tell you what command was passed to the system. And I guess it starts right here, that command where it tried to pass that command. And we can look at that command and see that that command is wrong, because we're getting the incorrect syntax near equal sign. And the reason we're getting that is where ID equals nothing. These happen to work because all of these fields are text fields. And so the single quotes that we're seeing here, that actually is saying set the data to empty, not null, but empty. It's just going to be an empty string that gets set in that field. But where it's failing is right here, where ID equals and there's nothing there. I need to have a value in the ID. So this is why it's failing. So I'm going to go here to the script log, and I'm going to be able to see based on what time the submission happened and what have you. I can see what my database error was. And by the way, it's telling you this is a database error, SQL query, and this exception is coming from SQL Server itself. So that's the database itself telling you what is wrong with this. Most of the time, we tend to go and look in our internal logs rather than our script logs. And you can do that as well because it's going to throw that error too. In fact, it's going to start throwing it up here where it tries to do the run, and it's going to run across that error. It's going to show you the stack trace about where the error occurs, which might be useful for us, although I don't think so, because it's giving me just blank values there, because it's not coming from inside the system. It's coming from outside the system. And so the last thing it says is it throws out that error string control, places it on the form, and tells you it couldn't execute the query. So you can, in fact, see this in the internal logs as well. So you have two places that you can run to if you see one of those errors, either the internal logs or the script logs, so that you can actually see what the system was trying to do whenever that error occurred. So it is trackable on your side, and you can see on both the script and internal logs what happened with that SQL statement so that you can track the error and figure out what the error actually was, because the error message that the user is going to send you when they try to run it is frankly not going to be all that helpful, because it is just a generic boilerplate error that we are letting the user see. And there are security reasons for doing it this way. You might not want the user to see any of the details of your database and its setup that can be gleaned by just looking at a detailed error message that shows the entire SQL statement. So as you saw in the configuration of the SQL command custom task, we're perfectly happy to show you the full error there because you're the implementer. You need that information to see how to fix it. But we don't do that for end users, because if I pass them the full SQL statement, if I know anything about databases, then that SQL statement tells me a lot about the construction of your table inside the database. Tells me the table names, tells me the field names. When I look at the SQL itself, the fact that this is enclosed in single quotes tells me this is some sort of text field. And the fact that this is not enclosed in quotes tells me that that is some sort of numeric field. So just looking at the SQL statement, if I'm a relatively smart fella, or at least a relatively experienced fellow with SQL, I'm getting a lot of information about this database table, the fields it contains, their data types. You might not want your users to know that, which is why we show you the full error. But if the user is running a form, they're going to see that generic error, which again, admittedly, not helpful for you, which means you are going to have to go and look at the logs to actually track down what the error was with that particular SQL statement. I think when I have data, my SQL statement should work just fine, but let's test it. So we'll go here to Abaye Airport, and let's say that I've put in the wrong airport code. So let's say I want to change it to BGZ as the airport code. So we're going to change that. And we're not going to change anything else. We're just going to hit update, and we're going to cross our fingers, and it worked. we updated our field. And I can tell we updated it because the airport code for Abaye Airport is now BGZ, or BGZ for our Canadian and British friends. So as far as I can tell, my update works. So let's say that the airport name was misspelled and I needed to correct that misspelling. Okay, no problem. All I have to do is click on the airport. Okay, have I clicked on something? What have I done? All right, let's just refresh the form. So all I need to do is click on the airport. It is now selected, and I need to add that E at the end of Abaye, which is missing. And this is definitely wrong now. The airport code is BGH. So, okay, I've just corrected these two things, and now I can hit update. And there we go. My airport has changed. It's got all the right data back in it. My update command works. Now, what I would probably want to do at this point would be to clear out all of the data in this field so that I couldn't re-update it, or disable the update command. Those are UI things. We're not really going to worry about them today. I'm just going to point out that once I click this update button, it's still active and I can still keep updating. And every time I click, this is sending data, or sending the SQL statement back to the database, and is making changes to this record. It doesn't look like it because we haven't actually changed any of the data, so everything looks fine. But clicking this update button is making a database call to Process Director. And if, again, I go back to troubleshooting and I go back to my logs, it keeps sending that SQL statement over and over again back to the system. So you're going to want to, from a UI perspective, work this out properly. I think the best thing to do whenever you are running this custom task, I think the best thing to do would be to I think the best thing to do would be to clear all the data out of the field. I think the best thing to do would just be to run the set form data, run a set form data action and just clear out those fields and force the user to go back in and select another airport, or the same airport to reselect it again. Alternatively, you could just temporarily disable the update button and temporarily disable it until I click on another field. So there's a couple of different ways to do this. I think the best way is clear the data. But maybe I'm wrong about that. All I'm saying is think about how you want the UI to work. Because maybe I do want to keep everything active and I do want to keep updating because I keep noticing problems, and maybe I'm updating one field at a time. I don't know, but just think about the danger of having these buttons just ready to rock and roll at any time, especially when we get to the delete button. Updating is bad enough because I'm changing data in the database. Worst case scenario, though, the way that I have my SQL command custom figured, is it's only going to change whatever record has the ID that appears here. So at most, when I hit the update button, I can only change one record, because if I'm missing the ID, it's not going to update anything. It's going to throw me the error. And if I do have an ID, that's the only record that is going to get changed. So my damage limitation here is the fact that I have a well-constructed SQL where I can only mess up one record, worst case scenario, unless I'm just, intentionally trying to sabotage the whole system, and I just keep clicking on different airports and changing the data and updating them. I mean, I suppose, you know, there's always intentional sabotage, I suppose, from some insider threat. Uh, but just think about how you're going to secure the ability to perform the update, insert, or delete command. The insert command, worst case scenario, I'm going to have data I don't want, which is going to have to be deleted by somebody. So the insert command, which we're going to talk about next, is not that big of a threat. The worst thing that's going to happen is every time I click the insert button, which we're about to put on the form, but every time that I click on it, the worst thing that's going to happen is it's going to insert a brand new record. I may not want that record. I may have to go back later and get rid of it, but it's not at least going to damage any of my existing data because it doesn't touch any existing data. It only creates a new record. Where we run into problems is the delete command, but we'll talk about that in a second. For now, we're just going to put a space here. We're going to go to our Actions menu, and we're going to select Button again. And for this button, we're just going to call it Button Insert. And we'll give it the text of Insert. 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 And we're going to go to our button properties. And, we're just going to choose a nice dark green color. No, this is color. We're going to choose white for that color. And for the back color, we're going to choose a nice dark green color. I hope I chose a dark green color. There we go. I don't think I chose a dark green color. I think I hit the wrong thing. I meant to talk about something with the update, and we are going to have to go back and fix it. We'll do that in a second. And that is the confirm text. What we don't want to do with any of these buttons is just allow people to click stuff and make it happen. We're going to want to put in a pause for reflection on each one of these buttons. And that's what the confirm text enables me to do. Are you sure you want to add a new record? That should probably be a question. So now, whenever I click my insert button, and we are going to go back and fix this on the update button. So now it is going to require that I pass this confirmation before it will insert the new data. Once again, I'm going to go with 10px on the corner radius, and I am going to turn off show box shadow. But before we go anywhere, we are going to go back to the update button, go to its button properties, go to its confirm text, and we are going to ask, sure you want to change this data record. And so now we'll get that question asked, and we can go ahead and save our form. I should have saved and closed it instead of just saving it. Too late now. There we go. There's my insert button. I have colored it green because, well, it's not destructive. So I think we're fine. We can go ahead and insert that data. And we're going to save and close our form. And we're going to go back to the custom task event mapping tab. And we are going to once again go to database connectors, and we're going to choose SQL command, and we're going to add that custom task, and we're going to set that to the button insert event. And I'm going to update my form, and let's talk about inserting data. This is one of the more irksome things I find with SQL Server, and it is the syntax that you use to insert data into tables. Update makes sense. I'm saying, okay, I want this field to equal that value. That's cool. That's straightforward. That makes sense. This is just crazy pants. Insert into table name. Good so far. And now we're going to do this weird stuff here. I have to use these parentheses to list my fields. Field 1, field 2, field 3, so forth, whatever. They do have to be separated by commas. So these are the fields that I want to add data to as I insert the new record. So the insert into says make a new row in the database. Okay, cool. This tells me what goes in that row. And the first thing I got to do is list the fields in this order. Then we're going to break and say values. This is the data I actually want to put in these fields. And once again, we get the stupid parentheses, and now we have to ensure that the values that go in this set of parentheses are in the same order as the field names that I call. So that means if airport region is the fourth field in this list here at the top, then airport region better be the fourth field in the list of values at the bottom. What was wrong with that? Why can't we just do that? That makes sense. Everybody can understand it. This is just silly. It's nonsensical. I don't know why they did it this way, but this is how it works. So insert into, and then you have this long list, however long it may need to be to get all your fields in there. And then you have the values phrase, which is once again that set of parentheses that you now have to go and ensure that they are in the exact same order for your field values as the field names that you placed up here. It is awful and I hate it. And I don't know why they did it that way. Let's take a look at our actual SQL statement and try to withhold our irritation with how they're making us do stuff. And let's look at something that I've got at the very, very end of this SQL statement. Why won't it just give me that? There we go. Now that makes sense. I just didn't like having my little single quotes on the line, on a different line than the variable. I'm doing something unusual here. Now, the reason that I'm doing it is because my actual list of airports does not have an auto-numbered ID field. I imported it from Excel. And when I imported it in the spreadsheet itself, I did not make it an auto-numbered field inside the Excel template when I imported it. You may remember last week we talked about the Excel file and how each of the field names, you can actually set the data types and why you might set the data types and different string text and numbers. I could have made this a auto-numbered field in my database. Probably should have, but I didn't. This is one of the common pitfalls that you run into whenever you use Excel data and you import it into Process Director. I mean, it's got to be common. I did it. And as far as Process Director goes, I'm a pretty smart bear, but I got it wrong whenever I did that. There is no auto numbered key. Okay, that's cool. That's fine. But the ID field is super important because that is technically my primary key, and it identifies the field that goes in that particular set of data. In most cases, we don't care about the ID because in most cases, especially if we're dealing with an existing data source, we already know that the ID is going to get created automatically when I generate a new record. So when I insert a new record in, my primary key is just going to be set automatically. And that is true whether I'm using an auto numbered primary key or whether I'm just, using a GUID and it's generating a GUID to set the primary key like Process Director does, right? All of Process Director's IDs are GUIDs in all of the tables there. Either way, I don't have to worry about what the ID field is. In this particular case, I do. And I think it's not going to be uncommon for people to import Excel data in this way, which is a bit of a problem because I now have to pass the airport ID. Couple of things to note here. The airport ID is not set off with single quotes because it is a numeric field. So that's one big difference. But the other big difference is that it exists in the SQL statement. I have to set a unique ID. I'm going to live with it here in this case, but you cannot really do that for your end users in Process Director because they are not going to have a clue what the proper airport ID should be whenever they are creating the record. Now, fortunately, we have a data source. I am going to set the appropriate ID because I'm going to look and see what the last ID is. And I'm just going to create a new ID that I know will be unique. But you can't depend on your users to do that. Under normal circumstances, with a normal table, this field would not exist. But because of the way I've imported this table, it does. So I have to include it in my insert statement because my primary key isn't going to be created automatically. Therefore, I must supply it manually. So understanding the literally insane way that T-SQL requires you to insert data into a database, I have for 20 years moaned about that format. We're going to go back to our SQL webinar data source for airports. So there we go. We've done that. It connects to my data source as expected. And we are just going to paste that SQL statement right in here, knowing that we are going to have to get rid of the word airport for all of my subsidiary fields. Oops. I am going to need that colon. And finally, elevation. Okay, I got a SQL statement. This is the correct SQL statement. This is the one that is going to run. If I hit execute SQL command, I'm not entirely sure what will happen here because all my values are going to be empty, including my airport ID. So I don't know if it's going to stick an empty record into my database or not. At this point, I don't care much because if it does, well, I'm going to go ahead and re-import my Excel spreadsheet anyway, and it's going to recover all of my data. But again, the danger of clicking this button, when I click it, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Nothing is going to happen because I'm missing all of the values. Okay, great. Well, at least I know that in its current state, this is not dangerous. It's not even adding my record in here. I've inserted data, but I haven't included any data. And so it is not going to insert the data. I should point out here with this SQL statement, I am including all 7 fields here. You don't have to. I can insert a new record just by doing that. Obviously, I'd have to change the values here. So I guess we'll have to fix that. But technically, this is good. And it will only create inside the new record, it will only create a record with airport name and airport code. Let's assume that I do, in fact, have an auto numbered primary key, so I don't have to pass that along. Um, this will work just fine. Now, all of my other fields will be empty in that new record, but this will work and it will create the new record that I want inside my database. Like the update command, I don't have to include every field in an insert command. Now, that's not completely true. I mean, it may be possible that you have a required field in your database and it will not create a new record without passing that required field. So it is possible for the database to still come back and say, nope, I can't do this because you are missing one of the required fields for a new record. And without that field, I can't create a new database record. In this case, I'm already giving it the airport name and the airport code. So I think we'd probably, in a normal database, we'd probably be good because it would need the airport code, which is the unique value that identifies each airport, and it needs the airport name. Those would probably be required fields. Would region or country or city be required? Yeah, maybe, maybe not. But in most cases, I would say that these would be the 2 required fields. So this would work. Or, of course, if there were no required fields, this would work. So the only thing I'd really have to worry about is if there was another field, like say elevation, that was required and I don't have it included here, then this SQL command wouldn't work. The requirement of require or the existence of required fields notwithstanding, this works fine as a insert statement. As long as I fill out the fields that need to be filled out, then everything just works fine in my system, and it gives me the new record, or in this case, it updates the existing record. So I'm doing all 7 fields, and I think in most cases that might be what you do. Because especially if you're creating a new record, you might want to fill in a complete set of fields for that new record. And maybe you wouldn't even want to allow the update button to work unless there was a value in all of those fields. So to go back to Process Director, it looks cool. We've added our data. I think the only thing left to do now is to ensure our form is fully saved and to run this bad boy and see what happens. We are going to do something first. We are going to go to our very last page, and the very last record for Zulu Inyala Airport is record number 857. So for me to create my new record, I am going to set the ID to 858. So we'll go to the ID there. We'll set it to 858 and The airport name is my airport. The airport code is EDF. Boy, I hope there is no other airport code EDF. If there is, it's my airport. Country, my land, and the region, my me, and the city is Daletown, and the elevation is, we'll say it's at sea level. So 0 feet above sea level. All right. We have 854 items in 18 pages. Remember that number right there, 854. Let's hit insert and see what happens. Okay, so what did not happen, because I did not have it configured for the update, is my confirmation dialog box that we set with the confirm text property on the button. Are you sure, comma, you want to add a new record? I don't know how that comma got in there. I don't remember typing it, but we're going to have to live with it for now. Now, if I hit cancel, nothing is going to happen. So that's the nice thing about the confirmation. If I hit cancel, the operation does not occur. The operation only occurs when I click the OK button, which is colored blue. It's the default response, and we're going to hit OK. Could not execute query. Please contact your administrator to correct the database connection. All right. So we're going to go to troubleshooting and logs, and we're going to see what happened. Database error. So expecting non-empty string for provider invariant name. Okay, let's go back to my form. I think what I forgot to do, SQL Webinar Airports. Okay. Okay. Why was there an error message when I opened it up? Did I just not save? I might not have saved my configuration. Do I have any other configuration forms open? No, I don't. Okay. So once again, let's refresh my form. Actually, I need to run an update over here. There we go. And now we'll refresh our form. And what's the number? 858. That's the number needed. 858. And okay, now we're just going to throw some stuff in here. We'll hit insert. We'll hit OK. There we go. Now I have 855 items in 18 pages. So it has added my new airport. So let's go ahead and refresh my form. I have 855 items. So, all right, where is my airport? It's somewhere in here. I know it got added because we went from 854 to 855. I really should have added that properly. Okay, so let's go with 859. And our airport name is going to be A, and our airport code is going to be AAA, not AAAQ. And our country is going to be A, and the region is A, and the city is, well, okay, and the elevation is 1. Let's insert again. Okay, there we go. I forgot what I called the airport. It is buried somewhere in these records. So I don't know exactly where it is. So because we are ordering by the airport name, it just becomes a lot easier to start the airport name with AA so that we can see that our airport does in fact exist and we are good to go. Great. Our insert works as expected. We can now move on to our very last one, and that is our delete. So we'll go back to database connectors, back to SQL command. I did not mean to do whatever it was that I did there. Let's try her again. Database connectors, SQL command, add custom task, configure. I don't have an event, so I will need to add the button. So let's just set this to SQL Webinar Airports, which is somewhere down here, right there. We'll do our connection. We're good there. We'll just type in the word delete there and we'll hit OK. We'll save it. I don't have an event because I didn't put the button in. So I guess we'll have to update our form. I'm kind of doing it backwards. What I should have done is started here so that I could put my button in. So we'll just go to the end of this line. We'll type in a space there. We'll drop in our other button, and this we'll call button delete. And the text will be delete. And then our button properties. So we're going to make this a scary red color. There we go, scary red. And our back color, again, we'll just pick white as the back color. And our confirm text is going to be, are you sure you want to delete this record? And we'll set the corner radius to 10px again, and we'll turn off the box shadow. So now I have a button. Let's just save it just so that we can watch it turn red. It did not turn red. What did I do? Oh, I did it backwards. So the color should be white and the back color should be that color. So I basically have a white button with red text now, which is the opposite of what I wanted. So we'll do a quick refresh to be sure that my changes now reflect what I wanted. And indeed, they do. So now I have my fully configured delete button. So I'll save and close the form. Then we'll go back and configure our custom task. So button delete is my button, and we'll have to configure it. So what are we going to configure? Well, it's pretty simple. In most cases, when I do a delete, I want to delete basically everything. I want to delete the entire record. That's certainly what I want to do here. This is the most common way of doing it. Now, I could do delete airport region. Am I in? Oh, did I hit the insert key? Delete airport region from I need a space there. There we go. This also works too. I can just delete a single field or 2 fields or 5 fields, whatever it is that I want from my row. So I can actually delete data, but most of the time, what I'm going to end up writing And what we're going to use today is just delete from SQL airports. So that means get rid of everything where the ID equals whatever the ID is, one standing in for any number. Again, the where clause is super important because that is a valid SQL statement too. Delete from SQL airports. It will delete everything from SQL airports because without that, well, I didn't want to get rid of it. I wanted to go to the next line. I really hate that it's putting my equal sign on the second line. This is not me hitting something. This is now an issue with Visual Studio Code. So it's slightly irksome. But the where clause, just like with the edit clause, becomes super important because what I usually don't want to do is delete everything in the table. So just like the lack of a where clause here would delete everything, or would not delete, but would change the value of field 1 and field 2 for every record, having no where clause here will delete every record in my database. I certainly don't want to do that. So I am going to need to have a more limited version where it just says delete from SQL airports where ID equals whatever. So in our case, this is the SQL statement that we are going to run. What we want to do is delete the entire record where the airport ID equals whatever I have in my form. So that is how I am going to configure my custom task for this one. This is one of the easier ways to configure a custom task. And I am just going to paste that statement in there as is. And again, if I execute the SQL command, it will fail because I have no ID. So the execute SQL command button is obviously not as not always as helpful as you would want it to be, and certainly almost never helpful when you're using system variables. But if you're going to hard code some stuff into that SQL command line, you do need to be cautious because it will execute the command when you run it. So just another repetition of that warning. All right, well, we have a delete command. Let's delete some stuff. I have two things I need to delete to get my records back into shape. So we're going to run our SQL webinar form. And, well, first off, we're going to want to delete that. So we're going to get rid of that airport. I don't actually have to change anything. I can just hit delete, and I actually want to be down here. So we have 856 records. So 856 airports in our database. So I'm going to hit delete. Are you sure you want to delete this record? Okay, here we go. And I now have 855 records. I notice it mostly because my AA whatever airport is gone, and now Abaye Airport is back to being the very first airport that gets listed whenever we are listing here an airport name. Now, I don't remember what the other airport was, but I do remember that the ID was 858. So somewhere in here, it's probably around the S's or so. Well, that's the K's. We're in the M's. So it's somewhere in the S's. Somewhere around 16. Nope, too far. Well, wherever it is, it doesn't matter. All I have to do is change that value to 858. By the way, none of this information is necessary at all. I don't care about any of that now. I'm going to be deleting it all anyway. The only field that matters here is my ID field, my airport ID, which is to delete, in this case, airport ID 858. So I'm going to hit delete here. Once again, I get my confirmation dialog. I will say okay, and I am back to 854 items and 18 pages. So I now know that I have deleted the appropriate airport, and my very last airport is again Zulu Inyala in Zaire, apparently. So there we go. My delete worked. I got rid of my data. I'm a happy camper. Once again, you're going to have to work a UI that ensures that users can't just click these buttons on the fly. So however it is that you want to expose these buttons, and at the points at which you want to allow a user to be able to click on them, that's all a UI design issue. So you'll have to, figure out how you want your users to interact with the form. Doesn't really affect what those SQL commands do and how those SQL commands work, but it is something that you need to think about in terms of how you want your form to work and how you want your users to be able to interact with it at runtime to ensure that they are not able to just willy-nilly delete stuff or update stuff without performing the correct interactions to do so. And that's it. We are done for today. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate the fact that you did, and I will look forward to speaking with you again next week. Until then, have a great week. So long.